Hi, so welcome to the next video on Google Sheets mathematical functions. So in this video we will see these functions like floor, seal, round, round up, round down, even and odd. So let us see one by one. So floor function is used. See, floor, if we are in a room, we have the floor on the lower side and the ceiling on the upper side. So likewise, floor and seal functions are used to bring a number to a lower number or an upper number closer, the closest integer number. So now let's try to understand this with an example so it will become more clear. So we will start our function with the equal to sign, equal to floor. Okay, so you can see there can be two arguments here, and in many functions you will find multiple arguments, some of which could be mandatory and some could be optional. So the option, which of them are optional, that you can find in this help box. So you can see here that this factor is optional. Okay, so it tells us that what is the meaning of each argument. So value means the value to round down to the nearest integer, which is the multiple of factor, where factor is optional. Now what this factor is actually, so let us first try to apply this floor function without factor, and then we will apply some factor. So if I say floor, now we want to floor this number. Okay, so this is placed in h2, so floor h2. So if we close this, you can see that it rounds it down. So at present we are not going to fill them. Before filling them, we'll understand what floor actually does. So when we only written floor h2 and did not mention any factor which was optional, so it just rounds down this number to the closest number. Okay, so 85.367, this is a decimal number, so we have rounded it down. The floor function has rounded it down to the closest integer, okay, which is 85. Now let us see what if we place some factor. So factor, what factor basically does here, if we specify some factor, so it will round down this number to such a number that when that number is divided by a factor, the remainder is 0. Now what does that mean? For example, if we take a factor of 4, so you can see that it has rounded it down to 84. Why? Because without this factor, it rounds 85.367 to 85. Okay, but if we divide 85 by 4, the remainder will not be 0, it will be some non-zero value. So it will round it down to such a number that when that number is divided by this factor which we have mentioned, the remainder becomes 0. So the smallest number and the closest number, which is divisible by 4 is 84. Okay, and if we mention here, say 10, now what do you think, what will be the result if we specify a factor of 10? Now the number is 85.367. By default it will be rounded down to 85, but when we divide 85 by 10, the remainder will not be a 0. Okay, it will be a non-zero value. So to get a remainder of 0 when divided by 10, the number should be 80. Okay, because 80 divided by 10 will leave a remainder of 0. Okay, so you can see when we specified this factor as 10, now the remainder is the value of this floor function is 80, because when we divide 80 by 10, the remainder will be 0. And let's try some other value. So if we choose a factor of 3, so this will be 3, so this will be again 84, because 84 divided by 3 will leave a remainder of 0. So factor here is optional. Okay, if we specify a factor, then the number which we have selected in the floor function will be rounded down to such a number that when it is divided by the factor, the remainder is 0. And if we do not specify any factor, then it will just round it down to the smallest integer number. Okay, nearest integer. Right, so let's close this for now. Okay, so likewise we can fill this for all other values. So for example, this is equal to floor h3. Okay, so this is 42. Now if we specify a factor of 5, then it becomes 40. If we specify a factor of 3, it will remain 42, because 42 when divided by 3 will leave a remainder of 0. If we specify the factor as 4, then it will be 40, because otherwise 42 divided by 4 or 41 divided by 4 will not leave a remainder of 0. Only 40 divided by 4 will leave a remainder of 0. So in this way we can use the floor function. So I hope this is clear to you. Okay, now to fill in all these cells, what we can do, you can see when we have placed our cursor here in this cell. So here we are having a little rectangle, a little square. So either we can drag it down like this up to the last value, or we can just double click like this. Okay, you need to put your cursor here. So as soon as this plus sign appears, you need to double click. Okay, and then all these will be filled up. So this is the floor function.